Peter Collins was appointed the Shadow Minister for the Arts 5 months ago, a new portfolio created by the incoming party leader Nick Greiner. He gave details of the policy while attending a rehearsal at the Civic Theatre. The policy proposes, amongst other things, new arts entertainment complexes throughout the state, including Newcastle, theatre facilities for some high schools, financial support for a major theatre company tour of the state, and for regional theatre groups to tour schools and regional centres. It means spending much more money on the arts.
Will you be financing specific projects here?
Oh yes, definitely. I think that the Hunter Valley Theatre Company, for example, has only sufficient funds for running half a year's program every year. Well, there's no reason at all why a major regional centre the size of Newcastle shouldn't have a full-time, year-round theatre company, and we would certainly move to provide that.
Surely in a recession the Liberal Party will find it difficult to finance its promises, though.
No, I think what people have got to recognise is that the arts are not a luxury, that they are an essential commodity, and indeed, I think probably one of the most fundamental measures of our society.
This is Towering Inferno, the gelding selected after an extensive search throughout the length and breadth of the country to play Phar-Lap. Phar-Lap is the latest Australian movie and one many are already tipping to be the greatest so far. Those who knew the late champion say the similarities between the two big chestnuts is remarkable. Even Phar-Lap's now ageing strapper Tommy Woodcock, when shown Towering Inferno for the first time, could hardly believe his eyes. Phar-Lap was a big horse, and so is Towering Inferno at 17 and a bit hands. In modern language, that's about 1.7 metres tall. He's a lot of horse and presented seemingly unending problems for those trying to get him aboard his very own aircraft this afternoon. The Boeing 727 belongs to a new company, Bloodstock Air Services, which has the job of transporting Towering Inferno around Australia to each of his premieres. This will be taking place in Sydney on Sunday and in Newcastle on Monday. Even Melbourne has to wait until the middle of next week, even though he plays the part of the greatest Melbourne Cup winner of all time. Foremost cinema horse trainer and stuntman Heath Harris, who owns Towering Inferno, reckons he could be a reincarnation of the great racehorse that spellbound Australia 50 years ago.
I mean, we just seen footage of this horse galloping, the real horse, and we saw this horse gallop off and I said, that's it, he's fantastic.
What sort of work did you have to put in on Towering Inferno?
Well, first we had to teach the horse because he's a station-bred horse, even though he's a thoroughbred, he'd hardly ever been off the place in his life. He'd never seen cameras, film crews, trucks or anything. So he had a lot of work to do. We had to teach him just to be a horse, a normal horse around for a start. We had to teach him to gallop. We had to teach him to collapse and die on cue. Look left, look right, nod his head, paw the ground.
Did you have to teach him to act like Phar-Lap?
You have to teach the horse because, I mean, you get a job playing Winston Churchill, you've got to act like Winston Churchill. So we had to go and find out all these things, and we literally had to teach this horse to act like Phar-Lap and do all the things that Phar-Lap did. He used to tear people's shirts off, eat his sugar and all those things. And
problem mounted upon problem as the afternoon stretched on and Towering Inferno was still not on board. You see, someone had forgotten to arrange any device capable of lifting him and his travelling companion into the specially fitted out cargo jet. Finally, it was the RAF to the rescue with a giant forklift truck, and soon the couple was on board, strapped in, calmed down and ready for the 20-minute flight to Sydney. Monday's first screening of Phar-Lap in Newcastle will take place at the Hoyts Royal Theatre in a gala night which will include a banquet supper organised by NBN.
Mr Morris believes Australian ship operators should look at the kind of specialisation and efficiency which has won Carrington Slipways a worldwide reputation as ship builders. Because if Australian ships could win an increased share of world trade, it would provide jobs back home in yards like Carrington Slipways. He admits Australian shipping lines have not been competitive in the past, but says this could change.
If we
concentrate on tasks that we can do well, if we concentrate on developing ships or building ships that meet the needs of the international marketplace, if our resource exporters get out there and look at the use of Australian ships, and if our own shipbuilding and shipping industry looks at utilisation of Australian labour, we can be competitive. But it needs two other things. It needs the financial assistance from government, and that we'll be providing with depreciation allowances in the coming budget session, and it needs an enlightened and cooperative attitude from labour itself. Now, we've had that also recently from the seagoing unions. Now, if we get that continuation of a positive and constructive approach to manning practices, to how we handle Australian ships, with a combination of the three, we can be competitive, we can be internationally efficient, and we can get more jobs for Australians.
The dispute which led to the confrontation at Root Highland Zircon was in itself not a serious one, essentially involving changes to a superannuation agreement. But now management and workers are quite literally on opposite sides of the fence. AWU delegate Cole Diver claims the men wanted to work but were locked out.
Turned up for work on Friday morning, and the manager asked us if there would be no further stoppages take place. We couldn't assure him of that, and he said, well, you're locked out. As far as we're concerned, there's no work here for you.
And they'd have normally worked over the weekend?
Oh, it's a 7-day roster. It's a process turnout, yes.
So what happens now? If you can't give an assurance of no stoppages, is the lockout likely to continue?
Well, it's up to management tomorrow morning, on Monday morning, that he'll meet us there and probably ask us the same question. We don't know. We're there ready to start work. We're ready to go into work. I cannot assure him that there'll be no more stoppages over the issue.
Industrial trouble is also once again plaguing coal loading in Newcastle. Electricians employed by the Maritime Services Board stopped work on Friday and are not expected back until Tuesday morning. Their stoppage is over manning scales at the new alumina wharf at Kooragang, but the men's action has stopped the loading of coal on 3 ships, 2 of which were scheduled to each take on 100,000 tonnes of coal at the Port Waratah loader. The rules were simple. The carts had to be homemade and powered by gravity. But that left plenty of room for creative design. They were all there. Big wheels, small wheels, 3 wheels. In fact, all kinds of carts. Some looking just a little unstable as they raced down the long hill that's in the grounds of Morisset Hospital. Organised by the Pathfinder Club, a Seventh-day Adventist youth club, the event attracted so much interest it may well become an annual festival. This year, the fastest time went to Kim Holston with his low wind resistance model.
A wide cross-section of Newcastle's business, community and political life was at the official opening ceremony. The GIO originally set up in this city in 1960, operating from offices moulded out of an old hotel in Market Street. Then the staff was 14. Today it's grown to 41, and so the need for more room became obvious. So the GIO board decided to make the organisation's first big investment outside Sydney. That project is now finished. This $6 million 6-storey centre on the former petrol station site at the corner of Hunter and Merriweather Streets. As well, the building offers 4 floors of office accommodation to lease right in the city's commercial centre. As Minister responsible for the GIO, Mr Booth could be forgiven for spicing his address with quite unveiled plugs.
Parliamentary colleagues, we should not forget the extensive services that the GIO offers this community. Among them is a new scheme about to be introduced in the Newcastle region to help motorists. Called the Recommended Repairer Scheme, it would improve the quality of motor vehicle repairs by creating a network of recommended repairers whose work is backed by the GIO. It has been operating very successfully in the Sydney metropolitan area for just on 9 months.
A media conference followed the official opening ceremony. Managing Director, Mr. Joss Trimmer, took the opportunity to spell out the GIO's response to the no-fault proposals of the Sackville Law Reform Committee. Mr. Trimmer described the abolition of a fault concept in accident compensation claims as a step in the right direction.
Well, we've supported the working paper in principle. We've done this on the grounds that it's likely to get a greater proportion of the amount awarded to the person who is injured, that there is more justification in periodic payments than lump sums because it more nearly equates the actual costs associated with the injury, and there are a number of other reasons, but broadly we support the approach that's been made by the Law Reform Commission in its working paper.
Will be the culmination of 7 qualifying tournaments, which include one at Wyong in the first week of September. The series is designed to take top junior competitive tennis to the country areas, and as John Newcombe pointed out last year, some of Australia's greatest players have come from country areas. The circuit proved a real success for New South Wales last year, as the state picked up 3 titles at the national finals. Many of New South Wales' top juniors, which include Janine Thompson, Wendy Fraser and Brett Custer, are expected to play.
The 50 young musicians, conducted by their trainer, Mr. Errol Collins, gave a fine performance which belied their inexperience. The children's orchestra was formed by the Newcastle Conservatorium early this year to provide budding instrumentalists with an outlet for their talent. The ages of the children range from 7 to 13. Prior to last night, they had performed in public together only once, before a small audience at the City Hall in April. But clearly the orchestra has a big future ahead of it. This piece by Woodhouse is titled The Clown's Dance. The imminent closure of the child abuse unit was the main topic of discussion at last night's annual general meeting of the Child Protection Advisory Group held at the Centrecare building in Hunter Street. The meeting was told that as it is, the unit is providing only limited services because of inadequate staff. After office hours, all crisis calls are transferred to Sydney, and callers may wait up to 10 minutes before they are connected with a counsellor. The chairman of the advisory group, Mr. Bob Adler, says those minutes are precious. He says not only should the child abuse unit remain open, but it should provide an around-the-clock counselling service.
As anyone knows, crises in families don't blow up between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Mondays to Fridays. In fact, if anything, they blow up outside working hours more often than during working hours.
If the centre was closed down, where do you think these people would be able to turn?
Well, I think they'd have to turn back to the 2 traditional 24 hours a day resources, hospital casualty departments and the police. Now, while in no way denigrating the service that those 2 groups of people provide, they are not appropriate for meeting the needs of families in the community on an around-the-clock basis.
So what are you planning to do to try and prevent this closure?
Well, we've asked for more information from the Minister. We're urging community groups to voice their protest as strongly as possible. And I suppose a particular concern at this sort of time, with unemployment being still a daily feature of our newspapers, with the closure of new plants, there is clear evidence that child abuse issues become more prominent with rising unemployment. And so we're encouraging concerned groups in the community to voice their protest and their concern as clearly and as loudly as possible. So the Minister has to take notice and has to give us some satisfactory answers as to what his plans are for meeting the needs of children and families in this region.
Officials from 20 Lake Macquarie clubs met last night at the Swansea Workers Club to discuss the situation they are facing. According to the officials, the hoteliers have been lobbying the state government for a crackdown on clubs since July 1st, when the new Liquor Act was introduced. In the Act, strict safety provisions regarding fire exits and maximum numbers are imposed on hotels, restaurants and night spots, but not on clubs. The hoteliers are claiming they've been singled out, while the clubs are free to flout the law. That is why they're calling for the restrictions on clubs to be policed. Club officials are angry at the Australian Hotels Association's methods, but they are nevertheless preparing for the crackdown. Last night's meeting was organised by the Secretary-Manager of the Swansea Workers Club, Mr Robin Dean.
The AHA are attacking us and using political lobbyists, which we think is unfair. And the main reason for this meeting is to make sure that our clubs in our area get themselves together and try and clean up the points where the allegations have been made that they're not complying with. And let's face it, some of them are a bit blind to it, and we all make mistakes. And if we can tidy up our own backyard, well, they won't have any bullets to fire at us.
The Special Education Centre was established in 1976 and is one of only 3 in New South Wales. It is, however, the only one based on a College of Advanced Education campus. Mr Mulock's visit was in response to an invitation from the centre's director, Dr Jim Miles. Dr Miles wanted to give staff the opportunity to discuss the centre's programs with the Minister and to point out some of the major problems.
Use the students as part of their practical experience to work in our community service programs. These programs, as you all know, assist parents with handicapped children over a large part of the Newcastle area. By using the particular students in these programs, we are able to make the Commonwealth and the state dollar stretch a great deal farther than it normally would.
So what's the problem at the moment? You're not getting enough students?
That is the main problem right at the moment.
We use this as one of the 3 colleges that provide for teachers to come out of the government school system to be relieved for a year from teaching to undertake courses in special education, and the demand from this institution is for more students to come out of the system in that way.
Do you think that will be possible, bearing in mind the current economic situation?
Well, that's the problem. It's a question of what I get in terms of the budget and what then can be provided to enable teachers to be relieved from their duties and to come. But special education is one of 3 priority areas identified by the government,